Everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel Definite Learning. Today we are going to start the first chapter, How I Taught My Grandmother to Read, of Class 9 English book Kaveri. Students, have you ever taught something to your grandparents? People often think learning is only for children, but this chapter proves that if a person has determination, even old age cannot stop learning. This beautiful autobiographical story is written by Sudha Murthy. The chapter highlights the importance of education, determination, and the special bond between a grandmother and a granddaughter. So let us see these activities first. Why is it important to learn how to read and write? So here four boxes have been given. So you have to write four reasons. So like you can write, it is important to learn how to read and write to gain knowledge, to communicate with others, to become independent, to get better jobs, and to be confident. Now let us see the next ones. Read the questions given below and share your answers with your classmates and teacher. Which language or languages do your grandparents or elderly relatives speak? Students, let me tell you, these activities are for you only. You have to observe, you have to recall the things and write here. So you have to write the languages your grandparents use. How do they spend their time? How do you spend time with them? So, observe their daily routine and write here how do your grandparents spend their time and how you spend time with them. What is your favorite experience with them? So, again, you have to recall your favorite experience and write here. What is something that the elderly in your family cannot do easily but enjoy watching you do? So there are some things such as watching mobile phones, reading English novels, or climbing trees. Many things are there that your elderly cannot do, but you can easily. But your elderly, they enjoy watching you doing those activities. Clear? Now let us see the next one. Read the following passage. Match the highlighted words with their meanings given in the box below. So here you can see the box, some words have been given here and a passage has been given below this. You have to match the words, highlighted words in the passage with their meanings given in the box. So students who read this passage on your own, I am just telling you the words. Protagonist, protagonist. This is main character. Debate, discussion. Episode, a part of a story. Community, people living in one particular area. Concentration, focus. Eagerly, excitedly. Convincing, believable. Guided, directed. Clear? Now let us see the chapter one by one, line by line. When I was a girl of about 12, I used to stay in a village in North Karnataka where with my grandparents. So when the narrator was 12 years old, she used to stay with her grandparents in a village in North Karnataka. Those days the transport system was not very good, so we used to get the morning papers only in the afternoon. Weekly magazine used to come one day late. So at that time the transport system in North Karnataka was not very good. That's why they got the morning papers in the afternoon and weekly magazine one day late. All of us would wait eagerly for the bus, which used to come with the papers, weekly magazines, and the post. So they all used to wait eagerly, excitedly for the bus because their newspapers, magazines, and the other post they used to come through the bus only. By the bus only. बस से ही उनके न्यूज़पेपर वगैरह आया करते थे दैट्स वाई वो उसका वेट करते थे At that time, Triveni was a very popular writer in the Kannada language. So, at that time, Triveni was a famous writer who wrote in Kannada language, and she was considered an excellent writer. She was a wonderful writer. Her style was easy to read and very convincing. So, she used to be an excellent writer of Kannada language because her writing style was simple and easy for readers to understand. Her stories usually dealt with complex psychological problems in the lives of ordinary people and were always very interesting. So, most of her stories focused on deep emotional and mental problems, psychological problems, emotional and mental problems, complicated. Complex means complicated. So, most of her stories focused on deep emotional and mental problems faced by ordinary people in their lives. Unfortunately for Kannada literature, she died very young. So, Triveni was a famous writer, excellent writer of Kannada language, but she died at a very young age. Even now, after 40 years, people continue to appreciate her novels. But even after 40 years of her death, people praise her creation, praise her writing. One of her novels, called Kashi Yatre, was appearing as a serial in the Kannada weekly Karmavira then. So there used to be a weekly magazine named Karmavira at that time. So one of Triveni's novels, Kashi Yatre, used to come in parts in Karmavira magazine. It is the story of an old lady and her ardent desire to go to Kasi or Varanasi. So, Kashi Yatre was a story about an old lady and her ardent desire. Ardent means keen desire. She was very much desired to go to Kasi and Varanasi. Most Hindus believe that going to Kashi and worshipping Lord Vishveshwara is the ultimate punya. Punya is good deed, good act. So, most of the Hindus used to believe that if they go to Kasi and worship Lord Vishveshwara, so that was ultimate punya for them. This old lady also believed in this, and her struggle to go there was described in that novel. So, the novel Kashi Yatre described the struggles of the old lady who wanted to go to Kashi and worship Lord Vishveshwara. In the story, there was a young orphan girl who falls in love, but there was no money for the wedding. So there was an old lady, and other than the old lady, there was an orphan girl too in Kashi Yatre. The orphan girl falls in love with someone, but she didn't have money for the wedding. In the end, the old lady gives away all her savings without going to Kasi. So, the old lady gave away her savings that she saved for going to Kasi. She gave the money to the orphan girl for her wedding. She says, the happiness of this orphan girl is more important than worshipping Lord Visveshwara at Kasi. So the lady donated the money. She thought that the girl's happiness was more important than going to Kasi. My grandmother Krishtaka, my grandmother Krishtaka, named Krishtaka, never went to school so she could not read. Every Wednesday, the magazine would come and I would read the next episode of this story to her. So the grandmother was interested in the story of Kashi Yatre, but she did not know how to read. That's why the author, the narrator, used to read the story for her grandmother. During that time, she would forget all her work and listen with the greatest concentration. Concentration here is focus. So, when the writer used to read the story of Kashi Yatre to grandmother, she forgot about all her works. She just listened with focus. Later, she could repeat the entire text by heart. She was very much interested in the story. That's why she repeated it again and again. My grandmother too never went to Kasi, and she identified herself with the novel's protagonist. So, the grandmother, narrator's grandmother, also never went to Kasi. That's why she could associate herself with the protagonist of the novel Kashi Yatre. So, more than anybody else, she was the one most interested in knowing what happened next in the story and used to insist that I read the serial out to her. So, uh, grandmother was very much interested in the novel than anyone else, and she insisted, she requested the narrator to read the story to her. After hearing what happened next in Kashi Yatre, she would join her friends at the temple courtyard, where we children would also gather to play hide and seek. So after listening to the story, she went in the temple courtyard and joined her friends there. The children also went there to play hide and seek. Here you can see some women are sitting in temple courtyard. She would discuss the latest episode with her friends. At that time, I never understood why there was so much of debate about the story. Debate is discussion. So, after going to temple, the grandmother used to discuss the story with her friends there, and the narrator was not mature enough to understand why she was so much interested in the story and why what was there to discuss about the story. Once I went for a wedding with my cousins to the neighboring village. Once the narrator went to attend a wedding with her cousins to some neighboring village. In those days, a wedding was a great event. We children enjoyed ourselves thoroughly, so completely. The children could enjoy themselves completely there. It was a great event. We would eat and play endlessly, savoring the freedom, savoring, enjoying. They enjoyed their freedom there because all the elders were busy. They could not interrupt them, they could not nag them. That's why they could enjoy themselves fully or completely. I went for a couple of days but ended up staying there for a week. The narrator went there in the wedding for a few days, but she stayed there for a week. When I came back to my village, I saw my grandmother in tears. When the narrator came back, she saw her grandmother was crying. I was surprised, for I had never seen her cry even in the most difficult situations. Her grandmother was a strong woman. She never cried in the most difficult situations, too. That's why the narrator was surprised seeing her grandmother crying. What had happened? I was worried. So the narrator was worried. Why her grandmother was crying? What had happened there? Avva, is everything all right? Are you okay? So she used to call her grandmother Avva. She asked her if everything was okay. Why was she crying? I used to call her Avva, which means mother in the Kannada spoken in North Karnataka. So Avva is mother in Kannada language. But she used to call her grandmother Avva. It means she was very much connected with her grandmother. She nodded. Grandmother. She here is grandmother. She nodded but did not reply. She nodded. It means she said that she was okay. I did not understand and forgot about it. In the night after dinner, we were sleeping in the open terrace of her house. It was a summer night and there was a full moon. Avva came and sat next to me. Her affectionate hands touched my forehead. I realized she wanted to speak. I asked her, "What's the matter?" So, in the night, after the narrator asked her grandmother if she was okay, in that night, they were sleeping in the open terrace, unroofed area at the top of the building. So when they were sleeping, her grandmother came and sat beside her. Her grandmother's affectionate hands touched the narrator's forehead. She realized that the grandmother wanted to speak. She asked her what was the matter. When I was a young girl, the grandmother started. When I was a young girl, I lost my mother. There was nobody to look after and guide me. My father was a busy man and got married again. So grandmother started saying that when she was a young girl, she lost her mother, and her father married again. He was a busy man. That's why there was no one to look after and guide the grandmother. In those days, people never considered education essential, important for girls. So people never thought that it was essential that girls should be educated. So I never went to school. I got married very young and had children. I became very busy. So when she was a child, grandmother was a child. She wanted to study, but she never got a chance. And after she got married at a very young age, and then she had children, and she became busy. Later, I had grandchildren and always felt so much happiness in cooking and feeding all of you. So then she started enjoying their childhood, her children's childhood. At times, I used to regret not going to school, so I made sure that my children and grandchildren studied well. But sometimes, grandmother used to regret. You regret means felt sorry. She felt sorry why she could not study. That's why she ensured that her children should study well. This is the exercise of the first part. I could not understand why 62-year-old grandmother was telling me, a 12-year-old, the story of her life in the middle of the night. Because grandmother was telling her story, life story in the middle of the night. That's why the writer was wondered. She was surprised why the grandmother that was 62 years old was telling her, a little girl, her life story. But I knew I loved her immensely, immensely very much. The narrator loved her grandmother very much, and there had to be some reason why she was talking me. So there was some reason. There was possibly some reason. That's why the grandmother was telling her life story. I looked at her face. It was unhappy, and her eyes were filled with tears. Grandmother's eyes were filled with tears. She was crying. She was a good looking lady who was usually always smiling. So, usually, the grandmother was a pleasant lady. She kept smiling. Even today, I cannot forget the worried expression on her face. I leaned forward and held her hand. She headed forward, she moved forward and held her grandmother's hand. Ava, don't cry. What is the matter? Can I help you in any way? She asked why she was crying, if she could help her. Yes, I need your help. You know, when you were away, Karmavira came as usual because Karmavira used to come on Wednesday. So, Karmavira, the weekly magazine, it came as usual. I opened the magazine. I saw the picture that accompanies with the story of Kashi Yatre, and I could not understand anything that was written. So, because grandmother was interested, that's why she opened the magazine. She saw the picture that comes with the story of Kashi Yatre, and she could not understand anything that was written there. Many times I rubbed my hands over the pages, wishing they could understand what was written. So she rubbed her hand on the magazine. She thought that maybe her hands could understand what was written there. But I knew it was not possible. If only I was educated enough. I waited eagerly for you to return. So She is saying, if only I was educated enough. It means she was feeling sorry for not being educated. She waited eagerly, excitedly for the writer's return. I felt you would come early and read for me. I even thought of going to the village and asking you to read for me. So, grandmother once thought of going to the neighboring village and asked the narrator to read the story to her. I could have asked somebody in this village, but I was too embarrassed to do so. So, one thought was there that she wanted to go to someone in the village and ask to read the story to her, but she felt embarrassed. She felt shy and she did not go anywhere. I felt very dependent and helpless. We are well off. Well off means they were affluent, they were rich. But what is the use of money when I cannot be independent? Now, this was the question from the grandmother that they were rich, but she was helpless because she could not read on her own. She was not independent. I did not know what to answer. Avva continued, I have decided I want to learn the Kannada alphabet from tomorrow onwards. So there was determination in grandmother's saying. She decided that she wanted to learn Kannada language, Kannada alphabet from the next day onwards. I will work very hard. I will keep Saraswati Puja Day during Dasera as the deadline. Deadline last fixed time. So she fixed a deadline for her learning, and she said that she would keep Saraswati Puja Day during Dasera. That day, I should be able to read a novel on my own. I want to be independent. Now, grandmother was determined. She wanted to be independent. She wanted to read the things on her own. I saw the determination on her face, yet I laughed at her. The narrator laughed, not because she was making fun of her grandmother, just because she laughed in disbelief. Avva, at this age of 62, you want to learn the alphabet? All your hair is grey, your hands are wrinkled, you wear spectacles, and you work so much in the kitchen. It means the narrator wanted to say that her grandmother was old enough to learn the things. She was too old to learn the things. That's why she laughed that at the age of 62, her grandmother wanted to learn Kannada alphabet. Childishly, I made fun of the old lady, but she just smiled. For a good cause, if you are determined, you can overcome the obstacle. Win. You can win the obstacle. You can control the obstacle. Overcome means to win or to control. Obstacle, difficulty. So, if you want to learn something for a good reason, you can do it. You can learn it. I will work harder than anybody, but I will do it. For learning, there is no age bar, age limit. So, for learning, there is no age limit. You can learn in any age. So, here we can see that the grandmother was determined. The next day onwards, I started my tuition. Avva was a wonderful student. So, who was the teacher? The narrator, 12-year-old girl. She was the teacher, and the grandmother, who was 62 years old, was the student. The amount of homework she did was amazing, superb. She would read, repeat, write, and recite. So, the homework that was given by the narrator, her grandmother used to do it regularly. She repeated it many times. She recited, she wrote it, read it. I was her only teacher and she was my first student. The narrator was the only teacher of her grandmother, and the grandmother was the narrator's first student. Little did I know then that one day I would become a teacher in computer science and teach hundreds of scientists. Later, Sudha Murthy became a teacher in computer science, but at the age of 12, she did not know that she would be a teacher in the future. The Dasera festival came as usual. So, like other years, the Dasera festival came there, Secretly, I bought Kashi Yatre, which had been published as a novel by that time. Earlier, it used to come in parts in Karmvira magazine, but at the time, later, it was published in a full novel. My grandmother called me to the puja place and made me sit down on the stool. So, grandmother called her and made her sit on the stool. She gave me a gift of frock material. Then she did something unusual that was extraordinary, abnormal. She bent down and touched my feet. Grandmother touched the narrator's feet, her granddaughter's feet. I was surprised and taken aback. Taken aback? Again surprised. Elders never touch the feet of youngsters. Yes, this is our tradition. Only youngsters touch the feet of elders. We have always touched the feet of God, elders, and teachers. We consider that as a mark of respect, so we touch their feet as a mark of respect. It is a great tradition, but today the reverse had happened. Something opposite had happened. It was not correct because this time some youngster was not touching the feet of elder. The elder was touching the feet of youngster. She said, I am touching the feet of a teacher, not my granddaughter. A teacher who taught me so well, with so much of affection, that I can read any novel confidently in such a short period. So, grandmother said that she touched the feet of her teacher, not her granddaughter. Because narrator taught her grandmother to read Kannada language, that's why she was the teacher for the grandmother, and that's why grandmother touched the narrator's feet. Now I am independent. It is my duty to respect a teacher. Is it not written in our scriptures that a teacher should be respected? Scriptures? Religious books. Grandmother asked if it was not written in religious books that the teachers should be respected, irrespective of gender and age, without caring about their gender and age. The teachers should be respected. I did return her namaskara to her by touching her feet and gave my gift to my first student because we knew earlier that the narrator bought Kashi Yatre, the full novel, for her grandmother. So now she returned the namaskara and then gave the gift to her first student because grandmother was the first student. She opened it and read immediately the title Kashi Yatre by Triveni and the publisher's name. So, because grandmother was independent now, she could read any novel independently. She read the name Kashi Yatre and the publisher's name. I knew then that my student had passed with flying colors. Flying colors, she gave very good performance. She passed with flying colors. So here we have completed the story. It was written by Sudha Murthy. So that's all for today. Have a nice day ahead.